Hi there, welcome to another England debrief, and boy, this is going to be fun. I'm Adrian Durham. Stuart Pearce, former England captain, is with me. Our talkSPORT England commentator Jim Proudfoot as well, and we've got a special guest on the debrief after this round of 16 victory. Ashley Young, World Cup semi-finalists. Can't wait for this. England are through. Nobody really knows how, but Stuart Pearce, first of all, what have we just seen out there? What really happened out there?
Well, we've seen an England victory, which is the plus of the afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Beyond that, there's so few positives to be drawn from the performance. I've got to say, we're expecting something special, knockout stages, come on, give us a little bit more. We didn't get it. We're in the next round. I think we're almost after 4 games of so-so. We're on a wing and a prayer, really, going into the next game. And the next game, the Swiss, very well organised and going to be tough to knock over.
They are Ashley Young. You played under Gareth Southgate. You got to a World Cup semi-final and played in a World Cup semi-final under Gareth Southgate. That did not look like a Gareth Southgate team, did it? What did you make of that?
I don't know what team that looked like tonight, to be honest. From start to the 95th minute, 94th minute, it just looked like a disaster from the word go. And we were saying there's spaces to exploit there on the pitch. We just didn't do anything. It looked like Slovakia were the team that wanted to get into the next round, and they were the ones that were pressing high, winning the ball back, and at times we just played into their hands by trying to give loose passes into midfield and let them come on to us when, you know, at the start of the game, maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes, we need to put the ball in behind to then get the spaces and create more spaces. But, you know, I think it's lucky to say tonight that we are into the next round, because that performance there wasn't deserving of it.
Yeah, I've got to say, the England fan in me is quite joyous that we're through, but it's solely based on the result. The performance does not bring any joy whatsoever. And Jim, I want you to tell me your thoughts on Ashley Young, really, because he's come in commentating.
I think he should be starting.
It's not a bad shout. You got your boots. But he's come in to commentate on this round of 16 game. Such a tough one to do. And I actually feel a little bit sorry for Ashley.
I do as well. I feel as though you've been put in a very awkward position, because the bottom line is the job that we do, you have to tell it as you see it. And I think that we pride ourselves on what we perceive as a realism about England. I don't think that we necessarily get caught up in all the doom and gloom that sometimes England fans do, and you know, maybe we are right, maybe we are wrong, but I think that we tend to be sort of more level-headed, and we never get as carried away by the ups or the downs. When you've got a game like that, you've got to be realistic. I mean, we would lose all credibility if we tried to pretend that they were, you know, a string of positive aspects. You're watching that game and you're commentating on one of your teammates at Everton, so you know you have been put in a really invidious position. But the bottom line is that there were so few positives and so few ways of dressing up the shortcomings. And what I found most alarming, Ash, was that these shortcomings aren't just a new set of shortcomings for this one game, but we're just seeing the same movie that we've already seen to a greater or lesser extent 3 times since we've been out here.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy gig tonight, but it was testing, which I really enjoyed, and thankful to all of you to help me through it. It's not easy to be in this position when I'm still a current player, and you know, like you say, Pick's my teammate, and there's other players that I've played with as well. But you can't sugarcoat a performance like that. You have to be real, and you have to talk how you see the game. And I don't think the players will be able to turn around and say, you know, there are many positives out of that game. The positive is we're into the next round, and that for me is the only positive that could come out of tonight. That's what we wanted to do at the start of the game, was to get in the next round. But when it's a performance like that, and like you're saying, it's not just tonight, that's been every group game now, and it's just hasn't been good enough. So as we go again, and we say again, we said at the start of the game that, you know, maybe tonight is the time where, you know, we're going to put on a really good performance and see the real England team. It didn't happen, so hopefully in the quarter-final it's going to be the proper England team that we see, that we've seen, that Gareth Southgate's team out there playing forward, playing full possession, playing attacking football, getting the ball in the box. Hopefully that'll come in the quarter-final.
Well, I've got to say, your teammate Jordan Pickford was probably one of the few positives, and by that I mean he didn't do much wrong. That's about as positive as we can be. Stuart Pearce, can you actually assess what specifically went wrong for England, and tell us how easy or otherwise it's going to be to put right before the quarter-final against Switzerland?
Well, looking at the performance, I look at us and I see us trying to build from the back with no vision to sort of go through and not reading the situation. I mean, myself and Jim watched the game against Ukraine that Slovakia played. They set up with their 4 defenders on the halfway line, and they said, you know what, we're going to stay close to each other because we're not great one-on-one defending. And they did exactly that. The other 6 squeeze on and we say, we're going to create a barrier of 6 players, and we're not going to let you come through that barrier, but we're going to leave a gap between our back line on the halfway line and our, the last midfield player. So there is room in that area. So straight away you look at that and say, right, how do we expose that area? What can we do to get... it's like a crab. A crab's strong when it's like that. Turn it over, it's got a weak underbelly. How do we turn it over? You've either got to play incredibly well through the thirds to get the ball into our number 10s, either side, or you've got to bypass it and drop one into Kane, or you say, right, I'll tell you what, the 2 centre-halves get on the ball, they'll press you to a certain extent, they'll get in shape, but what we're going to do is going to put 5 players up against their 4, and then we're going to toss 1 or 2 balls beyond them, or just into Kane to hold up and get the seconds and play from there, if we can't play through. Because at the moment, I don't think we look a team that can play out the back, play through the thirds, get the ball in the number 10 slots, slide balls in down the channels, cross the ball and score a goal. We look like a team who can get it out wide on occasion, and when we have put it in the box on 4 occasions, that's when we've scored.
You know, Slovakia have had 3 wins against top 10 opposition over the last 10 years. One of them have come in this tournament. They've beaten Belgium. So you look at their ranking of being 45 and you think, well, okay, they might be a little bit better than that. But we saw nothing from them in this game that we hadn't seen when they were beaten by Ukraine. I mean, Stuart's talked about it perfectly there. The way that the forward 6 would press, that Lobotka would go man to man, would come into opposition territory as the deepest of the midfield players. These were all things that we saw, and yet England, for whatever reason, didn't have an answer to a predictable set of questions. That we knew exactly what they were going to offer, and that's almost one of the most alarming aspects of it. That it was just, we almost looked underprepared. And I think back to Iceland, and one of the biggest bugbears of that defeat was that England conceded a goal from a set piece that everybody knew that set piece. They all knew the movement, and yet still Iceland scored a goal that day against a set piece that was so utterly predictable. And in a tournament in which England have been predictable, they haven't been able to cope with another side who've played well today, Slovakia, really well. Let's be honest about it, they should have won, they deserve to win. But they haven't done anything that we weren't expecting. Attacking from the left, Lobotka getting space, the press exactly as we've seen it before. And I find that a little bit concerning.
Yeah, there was no maverick magic that was unexpected from Slovakia. And I agree with you, they should have won the game. They deserved to go through, and England have got very lucky. I think, Ashley Young, we talked about the substitutions on the radio. There was one after 66 minutes. And bear in mind, Slovakia took the lead on 25. England didn't have a shot on target in the first half. First time that's happened at a tournament since Argentina 86.
In 1986, absolutely, the hand of God game was the last time that England got to half-time in a major tournament, and knockout stage of a major tournament, without having had a shot on target in the first half.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's an incredible stat. You threw that one out in commentary, and I was absolutely amazed by that. So I was waiting for the substitutions, 1 on 66, and then nothing until 82-83. When Eze came on. So if you're a sub waiting to come on, you could see what's going on in front of you, Ashley. Are you getting more frustrated on the substitutes bench, wondering what the manager's doing?
I think, we felt the frustrations of the players on the bench, and we could see that, there was times where the changes should have been done so much earlier. I think, Stuart and I called for substitutions at half-time. Maybe then it would have given us the impetus to then, go on and take the game to Slovakia even more and not leave it so late. There was so much spaces, like we'd said, the front six had pushed up and that they wanted to press, and Lobotka was the holding midfielder. There was so much space behind either side of him, but yeah, we didn't utilise that. You know, there were spaces in between the full-backs and the centre halves, and we didn't get between them either. So, you know, when the substitutions did come, I think it was too late. Eze coming on, you know, I think it was a wrong choice, even though he did well when he come on. But, you know, for me, I think Cole Palmer needs to come on, and Anthony Gordon as well, to stretch the back line. And if we wanted to play in front of them, then that was the opportunity to them getting in behind and then getting on the ball in the spaces.
I mean, England were literally inches away from an equalising goal 5 minutes into the second half when Phil Foden was offside. I mean, it was clearly it was the right call. He was offside. But it's amazing, even now, having seen how the second half and extra time develops, it's amazing that there weren't any changes made at half-time. And we were expecting there to be 2 or 3, and there weren't any, and then there weren't any for another 20 minutes or so. And, you know, one of the criticisms of Gareth from England supporters is that he's not dynamic with his changes, but that's a mistake that he will have learnt from previous games. But it was surprising, almost, you know, I think we used the word flabbergasted within commentary that there wasn't a change earlier, and it'd be interesting to, you know, hear not his justification for it, but what his thought process was, that he decided that he should leave it as it was when it so palpably wasn't working and England were losing.
Yeah, and I think Stuart Pearce, the subs that did came on, not for the first time with England at this tournament, actually did have a positive impact. So I find it bewildering. Is there any explanation you can give as to why he's left that so late?
The only thing I can think is he's got trust on the players on the pitch at the moment to turn things round. You know, sometimes I've been there as a manager myself. The performance is that bad in the first half. You give them a rollicking and you say, hey, go and solve it yourself. You're that bad. I don't think this situation called for that on the back of the game before and the game before. I think he's in a situation with his coaching staff now. I think we all knew the team coming into this game. We all knew Mainu done well enough to come in. Question mark, does Palmer start, does he not? I always felt he would keep with Saka, you know, and the team. The next one, I'm almost scratching my head. It's almost, the team selection could be absolutely anything, but we'll end up picking the same team that started again today if everyone's fit, because it's so confusing, you know, and no one's sort of, there were so many downsides that there's so more questions have sprung up from this game than the last game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think that, Jim, I'd want your view on this, because Mark Gay is suspended for the next game, so there's definitely going to be one change. John Stones was heavily strapped during extra time, so you wonder how fit he's going to be. And if you then have a centre-back partnership of, say, an Ezri Konsa with Lewis Dunk, for example, this is not a European Championship winning centre-back partnership. I don't mean any disrespect to these guys. They're elite-level Premier League players, but are they European Championship winning players? And maybe, just maybe, we don't have the great players that we thought we had.
No, well, I think coming into the tournament, we were concerned about the defensive performance. I mean, the numbers hadn't been great at the back, and it was, well, how are we going to be able to muddle things through? And there was an element of surprise that maybe it was Dunk rather than Branthwaite who'd come. But most people thought the balance was right. There were a few that thought he was a defender light, bearing in mind the slight doubt over Luke Shaw. I don't know how he tries to solve this problem now if John Stones isn't fit. I mean, I think if John Stones is fit, he goes Stones and Konsa. That is how I would imagine he will go. He's still not got a natural left-sided defender as one of those two. I think the fact that we didn't see Lewis Dunk at any stage today, when at one stage we were playing with a back five, I think suggests that he might not get the nod. But I don't know now whether the right answer is to go with a back three, because nothing else seemingly has worked. So do you gamble? I mean, they say the old adage is that the sign of madness is if you keep doing exactly the same thing and expect a different outcome. Well, we've done it 4 times, and the outcome, to a greater or lesser extent, has been a result that has been good enough, performances that certainly haven't been. And it doesn't feel as though we're moving in the right direction. As soon as we come across a decent team in any kind of form, it feels as though England are going to lose. So a change has got to be made. Now, is that change going to a back three, playing Kyle Walker as one of the 3 centre-halves and playing with wing-backs? Does that mean that you can then get Foden and Bellingham into the game more effectively? Should Foden and Bellingham both still be starting? what do you do with Declan Rice? Has Declan Rice done enough? Because you could point the finger that he's played 2 bad games out of 3. I don't think he was as bad in this game as he had been against Denmark, but that's not the Declan Rice that we're so used to seeing. So there are so many questions going into the quarter-final. I can't ever remember England being in this position where they've had that many question marks going into the last 8 of the major tournament.
Well, Ashley Young, you played in an England side that got to the semi-finals in 2018, and it was a back 3 with wing-backs. But it feels like Gareth hasn't got the appetite to change that. Are you surprised by Gareth? He's been called stubborn in this tournament. Are you surprised by his management, bearing in mind when you played under him, there was a flexibility there?
I think, like you say, when it was 2018, we played as a 3-5-2, but more of an attacking 3-5-2, where we didn't sit in as a 5, as a back 5. You know, I think there was a lot said about that then, and I think that's why he's changed to the 4. Will he revert back to it again? Maybe not. With, like you say, Mark Gay out now, if John Stones is not fit, then we've got, like you say, the Lewis Dunk, we've got Ezri Konsa. I think John Stones will be fit for the next game, and then I think I'd bring in a Ezri Konsa to play with him. Like you say, Lewis Dunk didn't get a look in tonight, and when we changed to the 5. So it's difficult, but I think that from the start of the tournament we was talking about the defence, and it was always about, you know, are we going to be strong enough in the defensive third of the half? And you know, there's a lot of questions. Like I say, there's even more questions now after tonight's game, and you know, we didn't want it to be like that. We didn't want it to affect the team, but there's so many questions now from everyone thinking, well, what do we do? What are we going to do? And I think that Gareth's now going to be sitting there, obviously watching a game back, to think, do I change to a 3? Do I keep it as a 4? Like you say, there's question marks of midfielders. There's question marks of further up than that as well. So, you know, there's all sorts of questions that are going to need to be answered. And you know, I felt that maybe tonight might be the ones where we answer them to the group stages, and you know, it's reverted backwards. That, you know, we've got even more questions now to what we had before we started this game.
And Stuart Pearce, you played with Gareth Southgate, and you know Gareth Southgate as well. He's seen what we've seen. So regardless sometimes of what he says in public, you might have to say the right things to keep certain players on side, or you know, just to say the right things. I get that in post-match interviews, but deep down, what do you think he's thinking right now?
I think he'll honestly be scratching his head a little bit. You know, sometimes managers don't know all the answers, and he'll be flummoxed by the levels of performances. You know, we are. He's the manager for this, and it's not as clear cut as being the manager and you know all the answers and whatever. He'll be scratching his head and thinking, where are these performances coming from? We're far better than that as a team. We got the question, Mark, about Trips now. Trips come off with a potential injury. Luke Shaw never come on the pitch when we were looking to block things up, and Ezra had to be the left sort of wing back as such, making the 5 up. That tells me he's not going to feature in this tournament, so we just well draw a line under him straight away, stop mentioning his name. But he'll be so frustrated as a manager and a coaching staff, I think, that some of those top players that have delivered brilliant performances this year have not delivered performances at this tournament as yet.
And final word actually from you, Stuart, because England were out, and I believe that had they gone out, Southgate would have gone, and it was that close to happening. And in many ways, listen, we're all glad that England aren't out for obvious reasons, but from Southgate's point of view, I'm pleased he didn't go out like that, you know, and he's got a chance to at least try and make it a little bit better and go out with a bit of a fight, because that would not have been reflective of his legacy, I don't think.
No, without a doubt. He's done such good things over 8 years, on and beyond the performances on the pitch, what he's done off the pitch, you know, that we've talked about in depth. But listen, we got a situation now. What's going to happen is this is football for you. We'll go to bed tonight, we'll wake up, we'll open one eye and say, did we actually win that one? And then from there, things will look a lot better. We'll have a little bit of breakfast together, won't we? You know what I mean? I'll have a cappuccino and I think, you know what? Maybe we weren't that bad. Maybe Adrian's marks on the players were that good, you know what I mean? And they were correct. And we'll be buoyed up and we'll go into the game in 4 or 5 days' time thinking, We could do this, you know.
I feel better already. This is the Stuart Pearce effect. Listen, England were out. They're still in. It's on to Switzerland in the quarter-finals, and I'm really looking forward to the next debrief, as long as England win it.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.